Best Irish music on irishradio.org with Jerry Byrne.
Irish Radio, I'm Jerry Byrne. Now, since the onset of COVID and everything else, I've been catching up and speaking to some of the great and the good of musical talent. And my next gentleman, definitely this applies to him. He was born in Meath, grew up in Dublin, and has been living in the County Clare for many, many moons at this stage. Deeply involved in music and in traditional music. He's released a brand new single, self-penned composition. It's a cracking one from a song about Galway. I'm delighted to say hello to the one and only Eoin O'Neill. Owen, how are you?
How are you, Jerry? How are you getting on? Greetings from County Clare.
Great.
I'm sitting here in Ennis, and it's a lovely bit of weather going on at the moment. How are you all over in London?
Not bad at all. Not bad at all. We're surviving through all of it. Oh, and listen, you've had a long time in music at this stage.
I'm all my life. I'm 62 years old now, Jerry, and I'm all my life. I went off busking around when I was 17 years old. I went off. Europe was great fun in those days, and I went off busking to learn the trade, and I had a great time up and down Europe for a few years. And then I came back and I had a fierce interest in traditional Irish music, and I ended up in a place called Doolin. Have you ever been there, Jerry?
I haven't, but I've heard all about
Doolin,
it.
County Clare. Well, Doolin is a place where there's music morning, noon and night, and in the 80s it was just a total university for musicians like myself, and we learned our trade. Sharon Shannon was there, played with Sharon there for about 3 years when she was a younger girl.
Indeed.
So there you are. That's how I started and got going.
Indeed.
And I've been going ever since.
That is superb. Well done. And I do know that Clare is sort of the home of traditional music, and indeed Doon, I think, is probably the very centre of that.
It is, and country music is equally popular here. In fact, what's nice in the real sessions, in the real pubs, when people are in good form, there's a lovely mixture of tunes and country songs, because the local people would often sing country songs, generally sing country songs, because that's what they love best. So it's a lovely mixture, you know, on a nice evening when times are good.
Indeed so. And we can't wait to sort of get back to that when we kind of get out of all of this madness and into normality.
Well, you know, for a musician like me, when you're self-employed as a musician, Jerry, I would have taken a gig every single night, and it's very easy in County Clare to do that. Because of tourism and because of other things, the pubs need music all the time, or they did until the pandemic came. And I would have played every single night. Now, if I didn't get a good gig, I'd do a bad gig. Do you know what I mean? I'd always be working, and if I didn't work, I'd feel guilty. And then this blooming virus came, but the guilt was gone. So I had this time that I never had before. And people like me in my age group had time that we never had before. And it gave us a chance to look at other parts of the music and of what we were interested in. And in my case, it was songwriting. And I've become a songwriter since in the last 15 or 16 months. I've written about 30 songs. And the song that my single that you're referring to, the Galway Waltz, I wrote that since the pandemic started. And I'm very happy to be a songwriter. It's a nice thing to be.
Indeed so. And I'll have to say that the song The Galway Waltz is being very, very well received.
Well, I'm delighted because I would never have sang before. Never. You know, I was always involved in producing great singers and played with great singers, Luca Bloom. I played with Christy Moore. I played with all the great singers in Ireland. And I never sang, and I never felt like singing because I always felt somebody else could do it better. But when I started writing my own songs, in fact, I played in a band called The Fiddle Case, and my first song I wrote, I brought it to them to sing, and they wouldn't sing it. They said, you have to sing it. So I recorded that, and that was the first time I recorded myself singing. It was about 2 or 3 years ago. But now, I don't really mind that I'm not a great singer, but I write songs with a bit of a story. So as in most country songs, there's a story, and I think if you're communicating that story, you'll get away with it. Because if you think about all those X Factor competitions and all that, so Chris Christopherson or Johnny Cash or Bob Dylan, they wouldn't get a look in at any of those competitions. But people would tell them they're not good singers, they're not proper singers. So who cares?
Exactly.
You know, if you can communicate your words, I think that's all that's necessary. And for me, that anybody likes my songs is a bonus. I'm not looking to be a star. I'm just delighted to be a star, and I'd love somebody else to pick up on the songs and sing them. So that's all I want, Jerry, and I'm delighted that you're playing my song. I really appreciate it. It's real buzz.
A real
Because
pleasure.
I've always been myself producing other people and making them get airplay. But to get my own airplay is it's like with a child again. I'm really having a great time. Thank you so much.
It's absolutely superb. Well done on it all. And it's quite amazing actually that that in the times that we had in it, like when the lockdown and all that came, that you sort of progressed into the songwriting, something that after all these years you had never even tried before.
Yes, I hadn't time. I felt so fortunate to be making a living playing sessions, because what my job is to be a host for a session. So here in Ennis or in Kilfin or in County Clare or Doolin or Lahinch or Ennis Diamond, my job would be to sit in a pub with a fiddle player. I play the bouzouki myself, and our job would be to welcome other musicians to come in and join us. And we'd be paid to play and to welcome other musicians. So how great a job is that? Like, you couldn't get a better job. And I've been doing that for 40 years, and I never felt a need to do anything else. I just felt so fortunate. So when I got the time, I was able to figure out, well, what am I going to do now that there's nothing to do? And I went down to a lake, and I started, when we had a 5 kilometer limit in the early days here in Ireland, and I used to go down to a lake and sit at the lake, and every night something came to me, because there's nothing else to do except sit and look at the bloody lake, and hopefully some words would come. And I would be a 3-card trick kind of man, I wouldn't be a good musician like in any respect, but I would hope I have a bit of soul, that I'd be able to play a G and a C and a D with a bit of integrity, and that's all I want to do, really.
Well done at all. I think you're a little bit above what you actually think you may be when you're working with those top musicians, the likes of Christy Moore, etc. So you got to be pretty good, Eoin, to be fair.
Yeah, no, I think music is a funny thing. First of all, we're all friends here, so it would be the real reason I'd be with them is because I'd be friends with them, but also because I think. In my case, anyway, I'd be a bit like a hurling manager, that I'd give somebody the confidence I'd bring them into the studio, and I'd be kind of, boosting them and jumping around, and when something is good, letting them know it's good. And, that's why I get involved with a lot of good musicians. But I was always able to notice musicians. I remember Sharon Shannon, the first time I saw her, she was like 16, and we ended up playing for about 3 or 4 years before she got famous. But we did 9 gigs a week, myself and Sharon, when she was young.
Wow.
Because we couldn't stop playing. We just. There was no need to do anything else. It was just perfect, and it still is. It still is.
Excellent. That was brilliant. Brilliant to see. You've still got all that enthusiasm, and you've also, Owen, you've branched into radio as well.
Well, yeah, I started doing a couple of radio shows here in local radio here in Clare, on Clare FM. I started about. A friend of mine used to invite me in to discuss 3 pieces of music I'd bring in, and slowly but surely I got my own shows, and I do a good few shows here now in Clare, in County Clare, on Clare FM. And as you know, Jerry, the wonderful thing about radio is now, I think people need the radio way more than the television for the last year and a half. The radio is their company, where the television is a diversion, but there's somebody actually talking to them on the radio, and I think we all feel that need for company. And the great thing with the internet is that when I'm sitting here and I've just finished a show here now of traditional music, jigs and reels and a few songs, and it's gone all over the world. Anybody that's interested in traditional music in Japan or in Seattle or in London can listen in the same as they can listen in down the road. It's a fantastic new world for the internet has changed everything, and it's great. It's a great experience for me, and it's a great privilege, as you probably know.
Indeed. So it is absolutely fantastic that and that is the one thing, as you say, Owen, that has hugely increased is the whole world of streaming, where people can literally, wherever they are around the world, listen to whatever they want to, and it's actually it's been the major growth in everything since the whole pandemic. I mean, it has exponentially grown since the very first lockdown.
Well, do you know what it's done also, Jerry, which is very, very important, I think? The whole internet phenomenon in the last 20 years has meant that it doesn't matter if you're famous or if you're not famous. If you're any good, you can show your stuff and people can find you. And it's been a great boost for working musicians that never got a break before, and now they can just put it up themselves on YouTube and if they're good, it'll work just as good as the famous people, and it's really evened out the way musicians are treated all over the place, and it's a fantastic thing. It's a great thing that you get young ladies and young girls sitting in their rooms playing guitars and singing songs, and all of a sudden they're well known all over the world. It's fantastic.
It
is incredible.
It is. It is absolutely fantastic, because for so many years it was nigh to impossible for many artists to just even get a break, to get anybody to listen or anybody to to realise their talent or their music.
That's right. We had on RTE here in Ireland, in traditional music terms, and probably Pascal Mooney was the only one that was doing country, but in traditional music terms, we had 2 shows a week. We had the Long Note on a Monday night between 7 and 8 o'clock, and we had Kieran McMahon at 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning. And you couldn't get played in those 2 shows unless you were, and the same people did get played on those shows, and they were fantastic shows. We loved them. But now, every station, every part of the country, there's independent stations, and there's so much opportunity for musicians. It's a great time to be a musician.
Indeed so.
It's really fantastic.
Indeed so, yes. It's the whole situation has it's stopped all the monopolies and stopped the influence of large media organisations as being the dictators of this is good and this is not good, and if it's good we play it and all this type of thing.
Right.
And it really did in so many cases. It kept so many people outside of the circle, and it was a real shame over the years. I mean, for example, you see people, for example, like Charlie Lansbury, who joked he became famous after 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
Christy Hennessy is another. I mean, there's just so many, and it's just all they needed was the one break, and it never came their way.
No, and the funny and what it's done for modern life and me now today. When I become a songwriter, when I'm singing my songs, when I'm releasing my song, I don't have to be involved with anybody. I can do it all myself. There's this thing called Bandcamp, where I just put up my new song, and people can buy it for €2 up, anything they want to do. But it means they can go into the studio and buy and do another song with the funds whenever there's enough from that song, which is it's just such independence, and it works.
Indeed.
No, I'm not talking about the big game. I'm talking about the working musician, the musician that wants to make 400 quid a week or 500 quid a week. The same as anybody else. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, exactly.
I'm talking about the ordinary musician.
Indeed.
And it's just great for them.
Indeed, it is. It's it is absolutely fantastic. It has opened up. It's opened up a complete another world, because there were so many musicians that there was no way they could record, because they couldn't get a record deal, they couldn't get a record label, all the rest of it, and because they didn't sound right, they weren't in the fashion mode at that particular time, and all the rest of it. And it is fantastic to see so many younger artists coming through today.
Great stuff, Jerry, and fair play to you for encouraging them and playing, and thanks for playing me, because that's a big deal to me. It's a totally different ball game when I spent all my life promoting other musicians and trying to get other musicians to sound good, and then at 62 to start singing myself. And I know I'm not a singer in the sense that but I think that there's an honesty and a rawness that appeals to people, and I'm really pleased that you're playing the Galway Waltz. I'm really chuffed, and I appreciate it.
Oh, no, it's a real pleasure. Listen, lovely to catch up with you, lovely to talk to you. And listen, keep going.
We'll meet soon. Whether it be in London or whether you get to County Clare.
Fingers crossed.
We'll meet you soon, Ger, in person.
Definitely. As soon as we get out of all of this, and we're well on the way at this stage. So
we're not far off. We're not far off now. We have to start now. It's time to go. It's time to. We've had the break.
Yes.
It's time to move on now.
Certainly did. Oh, and this has been great to speak to you.
I've enough songs written now, Jerry. I want to play them now. I have too many songs written. I need to play them now.
Yes, yeah. You got
it's time to move.
You got to get a public airing. Oh, and listen, great to chat to you. Thanks a million for joining me.
You too. I enjoyed it. I hope I didn't talk too much.
No,
I enjoyed it, Jerry.